Okay, I'm gonna read this essay that I wrote some time ago. It's called What We Know About What. I think it's a really important piece to share with everybody here at this local grocery store. I just want to know. Oh, so special, but it is. I spent April of 2019 in Los Angeles. The sidewalks were a little cleaner in Hollywood, and the city appeared to be a lost battle for personal freedom. And how I got stuck in Hollywood, how my coffee habit led to bleeding feet and frozen days, and I couldn't fly a sign for more than $2 in a day, which wasn't enough to save my life. When my Social Security came in at the next month and I was finally able to leave, I was struggling with comprehension of what people were saying to me and applying myself to normally simple tasks. Things as simple as washing dishes or shoveling dirt into a wheelbarrow. 'Twas the May gathering of the medicine tribe in rural Indiana, and I flowed gracefully as tribe has a way of aligning when they gather. At the gathering, with intentional application, though, and constant conscious effort alongside a loving community that valued the opportunity to share a moment with me, regardless of my state, I was able to rapidly recover, potentially to an even more conscientious state than I'd been in before April. During this time of healing in Indiana, I followed what appeared to be an opportunity to live in a trailer on a farm and earn $100 a week working for the farmer. The farmer was a real kind, godly man. The other two people were his lady friend and her mentally retarded brother, who had had a traumatic accident that had left him that way and was struggling to improve his state. Due to this, the government was paying the family to take care of him. And given my own recent experience, I greatly registered with this and enthusiastically supported the prospect that he could totally recover. In the trailer where I was staying, I found an unopened $50 DVD of Daniel and Tana Amen called something like 15 Ways to Improve Your Brain Health. The lady told me it was for her brother to help him with his brain. Probably the second day that I was there was a Sunday. I ripped the thin plastic seal from the DVD and put the DVD in over our morning coffee. Everyone sat down to watch the DVD for her brother's brain health with me. I'm fascinated with this sort of thing, so I was excited to watch this video for me. I'd previously spent hours studying Daniel Amen's perspective on my own, according to all the free material that I could find online. So I had a good foundation for comprehending what all he discussed, and I wanted to know what was different about what he discussed on this $50 course. I took notes. I broke the whole perspective down into a plan for the whole family. During the DVD's playing, the lady fell asleep in her recliner, spilling milk and something sugary across her lap and onto the floor. Nobody was allowed to save the thing because reportedly that had been tried and would anger her. The farmer watched intently, fascinated through the whole video, and inspired at one point, he shared a magic trick. The brother sat awake through the movie, but wasn't especially interested and seemed really somewhat opposed to the whole event in a sort of rejection. When the Sunday video course was done, I put my notebook away and went outside to evaluate some work I had to do the next day. Though it was a day of rest, I was obsessed with the importance of applying myself to something for my recovery. Joy that I could feel such a way. That Sunday morning, I had a ritual and community. I opened a DVD and brought some people together for a purpose. I learned something and then I got stoked to work on something new because I was able to feel excited and enjoy my day. Later that day, or some other while I was there, the farmer and I went into town. From questions about what all he had done in his life, he shared a story with me. He said he'd worked on a big farm for years. Once, he said, a man below me actually tried to take my job there. I hate that sort of thing. I responded, "Oh, really?" "Yeah, this is what I told him. You can have my job. I've already talked to our supervisor, and it's all yours if you can answer me one question." The man responded, "Okay." So I said, "There are two parts. Cows, deer, horses, they all eat pretty much the same thing, right?" The man nodded. "So why do cows, deer, and horses all have different looking poop?" One's a pie, the other's pellets, and the third's a turd. The man didn't know the answer. Then I asked him, "Why do you think you deserve my job if you can't tell me about shit?" I laughed. We went and got haircuts and new socks, and then headed back to the farm. In the trailer I was staying in, I made a copy of Daniel and Tana Amon's video review planned for the whole family to put on their refrigerator. The perspective was divided into to-get lists, practices, rules, and perspective to live by, and the effect we want. A breakdown more relevant to their day-to-day and easier to comprehend than the entire course itself. Over the course of the week or so that I was there, I found that the farmer's lady friend yelled a lot. She was verbally abusive to her struggling brother and to the farm animals, and to me, which generated a sort of inescapable anxiety, probably compounded by her smoking cigarettes in the house. And to push the extreme, the final night before I packed my belongings and began walking down the rural highway to get back to somewhere I could feel safe, she fogged the bathroom that served as a hall between her brother's bedroom and the kitchen with spider and insect killer that I could still smell in the kitchen the next morning. In the evening, I could hear her seemingly unending bullyish yelling at the family's goats across the hill in my trailer. I certainly saw her hit one from the other side of a wooden fence for no reason other than this was part of how she felt better in treating them. I think this was some sort of coping mechanism for her, according to her misfiring neurons. To deal with her bipolar. I couldn't feel at peace at all in that household because of the lady's constant. I posted the Tana and Daniel Amon review to the refrigerator, and though I'm not sure that she wanted her punching bag to recover, I realized a truth in this paper that I was pinning to their refrigerator about the whole experience and the story that the farmer had shared with me. This review was an outline of what the family knew about shit, or what, of managing the recovery of their weakest member. The lady had bought the DVD for her challenged brother, expecting him to comprehend it himself. Though he was moving very slow and could barely walk, he fell often. The DVD had gone unopened until I opened it and put it in the DVD player. Even after watching it, she had fallen asleep. None had really set an example of acting on a desire to improve, to change something in their life, to apply this knowledge for the sake of healing her brother, or better, improving their own state of well-being, to lead by example. The lady was confident that the information was irrelevant to her. Upon leaving the household, I was still the only one who knew what was preached on that DVD. It's like the prospect of being saved or of learning something that could save her brother wasn't even enough to stimulate interest. This less than reasonable state of accepting things in our time as being fine enough to not even approach improvement, or maybe they're heavy and something has changed in our ability to take action like we once did. So much of that experience beyond any reasonable list wasn't fine and was really horrid. Could this state of acceptances be from a lack of being challenged? In this instance, there should have been plenty of reason to scream at oneself, organize. A challenge shouldn't be necessary to seek a greater sustainability of the whole. This is a moral. The perfection of our relationships and reaching the ultimate potential of our whole, the value of everything to the greater good, should be the foundation of every direction we take in life. If there is something evidently wrong in the process of our whole, we should be taking action to correct it. Maintaining our ability to each individually within our interdependence have the right effect is essential to this. We want to be able to produce the right emotion in each instance of our lives, to mindfully approach our paths. Are we balanced yet between mind and body? From what chakra are we thinking? Maybe we need to balance out of our heads, to think more from our bodies, to breathe, tune, and allow us to feel our world. The lady didn't have any real comprehension of what the problem was with her brother. She should have opened the DVD and watched it immediately if she thought there was any value to it at all. to do something else is evidence of her personal mental illness. We've been living in this age of acceptances. Like Peter Thiel states, our parents weren't wrong to believe the future would be better. They were wrong to expect it to be automatic. We've taken for granted things like empathy, requiring at some point a first desire to understand or to see the whole of us as being imperfect, and so more worthy of investigation as to where the broken relationships that are making that so are found. At the beginning of May, I couldn't comprehend conversations or apply myself to achieving simple tasks due to what all experiences my journey had handed me. What I knew from experience is that if I'd have gone to my mother or most people for help instead of seeking understanding and having faith that this was only temporary, the people would, without investment in a moment of surrender to say the hollow words of diagnoses, and faith in a system that they don't understand, have sent me to a locked institution where I'd have had drugs forced on me without even the ability to run. When in reality, what I needed then and had needed all my life at this time in Indiana, where I stayed on this farm, where I went to this medicine tribe gathering, and by the grace of God at this time was a loving community and the ritual of pushing myself to the curb with running shoes on. And at the end of May, I was well on my way to being a functional member of society again. The state I'd arrived back east in, after the expectations of individuals generated by a moralist Southern California and a terrified hero-cultured political campaign, was lacking one of the basic needs of feeling safe and of achieving my best, which is rather amounted to after having met the psychological necessities of a support system or my own place of importance, and has to do with my day-to-day pace and ability of moral abidance, but is so primarily dependent on my connection to my community, which is why our tribe gathers twice a year for a time of healing, and why that really is worth the reservation to understand what we need to succeed, what we can or can't achieve as we are, and what time we've been lost in. And which is why this is a humbling experience as the years turn over and we see what we're capable of. In a sense, we have to return to our breathing, our thinking's clarity, to be humble and respect as our best of all we can do while we continue to make the gatherings and strive for righteous successes. I went regardless of the state I was in, and the love of my people was what enabled me to feel free and go for a run, and was the medicine I needed. I wasn't the only angel child there in a quiet state. The activists from the People's Project bus were seemingly in a more pensive state than the previous October. They would sit in long meditations by the sacred fire and talk in very quiet voices, moving slowly, like a person who's been shook and regaining control of their spirits. There was a feeling of uncertainty about the potential intensity of our circumstance, like we'd survived a series of bombings and were glad to be together, but not sure what the future would bring, as we all carried on with our pursuits somewhat automatically. But at this time, I recovered, and for a while before the world shook me again, I balanced Maslow's hierarchy to the best of my ability, and I was able to be healthy in my feet, my mind, and my spirits. I feel that the story that the farmer shared is parallel to how the leadership of Marianne Williamson's campaign for presidency didn't lift me to a couch from the curb, though I showed in person, answered the people's questions, and provided creative approach like nobody else of the thousands in the campaign network. It's paralleled in how Seek Healing had all leg-crunching cushions, so I bought them nice buckwheat and cotton Zafus to encourage balance and good posture at their meetings. I bought their president a book out of the box business perspective, volunteered in preparing their table for their table for outreach at the city-county government discussions and their annual fundraiser, and began their core group on considering ways of generating reoccurring income instead of always being dependent as a nonprofit. But it was found humorous upon me mentioning the thought that I be lifted from the curb to a couch or so as a real piece of the community. This story of leadership is paralleled by more than one American dream project in which I've seen fail due to someone having money or degrees to run their dreams but no capacity for understanding their people. The story paralleled my experience with my own tribe in an instance where I visited one of their rugged, poor, off-grid, sustainable community projects, gifting my favorite children's books to families who were raising their children on the community. Books like How to Win Friends and Influence People, to a girl who was talking about a want for people to empathize more deeply with her, and A Hewn Log House, Complete Guide to Building and Restoring, to the construction crew of the community. And once again, meditation cushions to the community as a whole, only to be accused of stealing pocket change from somebody's car by some of the 80 or so residents simply because I was gone when it turned up missing. The story parallels how the homeless support system and volunteers at community tables and members of churches in which I visited with a backpack haven't considered me as a brother and opened their floor or couch to me, even in bitter cold, regardless of how they treat me in person, how I contribute to their experience, or how genuinely excited they appear when they see me. This immoral slacking is evidently a common occurrence in leaderships and in most people's expectations of their lives, as well as it outlines how there is value in my authentic journey and why I really need help from a community beyond myself to succeed with my mission for God's workmanship. All right, that's the essay. What we know about what.